ever considered how much default settings shape your choices? How often do you actually take the time to change them or install an alternative? After all, isn't convenience the driving force behind most of our online experiences? That's exactly the debate at the heart of the Competition Commission of India's recent decision on Microsoft. A complaint accused Microsoft of unfairly bundling its antivirus, Microsoft Defender, with Windows. But the CCI wasn't convinced. They ruled that users still have the freedom to choose other antivirus options and found no real evidence that Microsoft's approach was shutting competitors out of the market. Let's see how both sides made their case. The complainant claimed that Microsoft doesn't give users the option to install just Windows without Microsoft Security Essentials. By bundling Defender as a pre installed, pre activated default, they argued that Microsoft is giving itself an unfair advantage, essentially pushing out third party antivirus vendors and discouraging innovation in the industry. They also pointed out that since Windows 10 launched in 2015, Defender has been an inbuilt part of the OS. According to the complaint, Microsoft requires every Windows device manufacturer, also known as OEM, to include Defender, making its presence mandatory. The complainant argued that when it comes to antivirus software, default status is everything. Features like real time protection, background scanning, and automatic updates tend to work best and, in some cases, only function effectively when an antivirus is set as the default. Without it, third party security programs might struggle to provide the same level of protection, making them less appealing to users and eventually pushing them out of the Windows ecosystem altogether. They also claimed that Microsoft makes it harder for third party antivirus software to compete. While other security programs can technically be pre installed, they can't be set as the default, giving Microsoft Defender an unfair advantage. On top of that, getting onto Windows isn't exactly simple. Antivirus developers have to agree to Microsoft's term to access key security tools with no real guarantees. Even entering the Windows ecosystem requires jumping through hoops, whether it's through the Microsoft Store, side loading with security warnings, or OEM deals that allow pre installation but no default activation. While Microsoft Defender is already built in, activated, and ready to go, making it the obvious choice for most users whether they actively choose it or not. The complainant also claimed that Microsoft gathers a lot of data from Microsoft Virus Initiative, also known as MVI, members, including telemetry and app usage details, giving it access to sensitive device information. They argued that Microsoft controls how this data is shared and allegedly uses it to improve Microsoft Defender by incorporating features that have worked well for competitors. This, they said, puts third party antivirus companies at a disadvantage and discourages developers from joining MVI, since doing so could mean exposing their proprietary technology and weakening their market position. Microsoft defended its approach, arguing that integrating Defender into Windows is standard industry practice and ensures users have continuous protection against cyber threats. The company insisted that Defender isn't a separate product but a built in security feature that comes at no extra cost. Plus, they pointed out that if a user installs a third party antivirus, Defender automatically turns itself off. On the MVI program, Microsoft maintained that it's a voluntary initiative designed to help antivirus vendors collaborate and improve malware detection. They emphasized that users are still free to install and use other third party security software even if it's not part of the MVI. Microsoft also stated that computer manufacturers are free to pre install other antivirus programs as long as they meet quality standards, with MVI membership acting as a reliability benchmark. As for concerns about data collections, Microsoft denied using privileged competitor information, claiming it only accesses publicly available data. Previously, CCI established a few key rules when deciding whether bundling or tying products together is anti competitive. First, the products in question must be distinct from each other. Second, the company accused of bundling must have a dominant market position. Third, customers should have no real option to get one product without the other. And finally, bundling must actually harm competition in a significant way. In this case, Microsoft argued that Defender is just a built in security feature of Windows, offered at no extra cost. The company also claimed that it doesn't dominate the antivirus market in a way that would harm competition. CCI, however, didn't fully agree. It acknowledged that there is a separate market for antivirus software, meaning Defender isn't just a core part of Windows, it's a distinct product. The Commission also stated that Microsoft holds a dominant position in the antivirus market for Windows users in India. So the case satisfied the first two conditions for anti competitive bundling. But then came the question of coercion. Are users forced into using Microsoft Defender? The Commission didn't think so. It pointed out that plenty of well known antivirus companies are still thriving in the market and that Microsoft hasn't created any strict barriers preventing users from switching to a competitor. There was also no evidence that Microsoft's approach had slowed down innovation or made it harder for other antivirus companies to improve their products. In the end, CCI found no reason to say that Microsoft was unfairly limiting competition. This brings up an important question. Do users really have a choice when it comes to default security settings? Most people don't go out of their way to uninstall pre installed software, especially when it's something as crucial as antivirus protection. The default option tends to stick simply because it's already there. And let's be honest, who wants to go through the extra hassle of changing it? Take McAfee for example. Ever tried uninstalling it? The constant prompts and endless loops make it feel like a battle just to remove it. Now, if a third party antivirus like McAfee is that hard to get rid of, what does that say about opting out of Microsoft Defender? It raises concerns about whether default bundling gives users a meaningful choice or it just nudges them towards sticking with what's already installed. In past cases, like those involving WhatsApp and Google in 2020, the CCI ruled that bundling wasn't anti competitive because there was no direct coercion. A similar argument applies here. Under Indian law, bundling or tying is only a problem when buying one product is tied to another with no real way to separate them. Back in 2020, the European Commission called out something we all know but don't always think about. Just because you can download an alternative doesn't mean you will. People tend to stick with whatever comes pre installed, and companies know this. Companies have to spend time and money convincing users to move away from what's already pre installed because most people just stick with the default option out of convenience. But when CCI reviewed Microsoft's bundling of Defender, it didn't really take this into account. Instead, it focused on whether Microsoft was forcing users to stick with Defender rather than recognizing how default settings, pre installation, and ecosystem lock in can subtly limit choice. Unlike traditional markets where people actively choose products in digital spaces, the default option often wins simply because it's already there. In digital markets, user inertia plays a significant role in sculpting choices. People tend to stick with whatever comes pre installed, not necessarily because it's the best option, but because it's the easiest. Whether it's an antivirus program, a web browser, or a media player, the default setting often becomes the de facto choice simply because most users won't go out of their way to change it. That's why, when looking at cases of bundling, the real question isn't just whether users can switch, but whether they realistically will. The European Commission made this argument when it ruled against Microsoft for bundling Windows Media Player, stating that even though alternatives were available, user inertia meant most people wouldn't bother. Similarly, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development has pointed out that in digital markets, coercion isn't always obvious. It can be a subtle nudge, making something the default, giving it an edge while quietly pushing competitors aside without any outright restriction. This raises a bigger question. If user inertia makes default setting a powerful tool for dominance, does waiting for obvious harm to competitors ignore the way digital monopolies quietly build up? Thanks for tuning in. This is Sakshi with MediaNama. Follow us for more updates on tech and policy.